What do you think might be important for other parents to know about New Directions?
The thing that was the most concerning to me was who was going to watch out for my son while he was living alone. Is there really someone that's going to be around at 2 a.m. when he's freaking out? And I think that knowing that there was a staff person available 24 hours a day that was simply a phone call away and a few steps away made a huge difference in my comfort zone.
Okay. Anything else that you think parents might want to know about the program, or?
I had a sense, I think every parent approaches New Directions with their own questions and fears and concerns, because your child doesn't get to New Directions because they were having a good day yesterday, generally.
Right.
So I think it's important that they know that the fullness of the program, particularly when your child starts, it really does encompass a full day's activities. The evenings are filled. That was a big concern for me, is what would my student do in the evening? And every evening there's an activity that they are scheduled to go to and they need to go to, and that's where they learn how to do the social interactions with other students, and that was a huge benefit. Helping them learn how to cook, helping them learn how to clean their apartments. It's all done in a non-judgmental way, and that was another piece that was really important to me. After the first few months of working with the staff at New Directions, I could see that they all genuinely liked my student. They liked my son, and he was well accepted, starting with the staff, and then that kind of grew out to being accepted by the other students.
You told me a little story right before we started recording about something that happened when you've been staying with him. Can you tell me the story again about what he said about keeping the apartment clean?
Oh, so we're visiting him here in California, and it's just the beginning of their winter, and so the leaves are falling. And so as we were approaching the door, he said, "Please take your shoes off because you track leaves in." So we dutifully took our shoes off and entered the apartment, and a bit later my husband put a fork on the counter, and my son picked up the fork and showed it to him and said, "There's not a big difference between putting the fork on the counter and putting the fork in the dishwasher. Please put utensils in the dishwasher when you're done with them," which is really, really huge for a 21-year-old young man to want to keep his apartment pretty spotless in the living area, the common living area, he told us. Please keep your place clean in the common living area.
A lot of parents are concerned about like how kids coming in will fit in the program. Could you talk a little about your experience in sort of the various levels of social functioning and the different social groups that we offer? And
that was a big concern for me, because I knew the difficulties that my son was bringing to New Directions, and I wasn't sure how not only his difficulties would interplay with others, but as well how others' difficulties might be better or worse than his. And I didn't want him to learn any more new bad traits. I had that kind of fear. None of that panned out to be true. I think there's a variety, particularly in Florida, which I think is one of the reasons that I really liked his starting there, reflecting back on that, because there's such a variety of students from which your student will develop friendships. There's high-functioning kids, there's kids on the spectrum, there's kids that have other issues, maybe not spectrum-related, that bring different kinds of difficulties. And I think that those social events that they have during the evenings is such a great place for your student to learn how to interact with others. And the staff helps with that a lot. And they end up with a roommate that helps them learn how to live together with other people. So I don't think that that's a concern, because the Florida program is so large. The California program maybe is, because it's a little smaller in nature, it might be a little bit more particular in choosing the students who attend here, this particular branch. And that might, but it seems that they're all very amenable and nice kids. I haven't met any of them that I wouldn't want to have visit my home.
Tell me a little bit about how New Directions has helped your son.
Wow, we don't have 3 hours, do we?
Uh-huh.
When my son left home, he went to a wilderness program, and at that point, we weren't sure if we would have any connection with him at all in the future. That path grabbed us, and we ended up going along for the ride. Our son ended up in Florida, and he is a completely new, different person. He came home for Thanksgiving this year, just a couple weeks ago, and we have the son living with us that we never thought would live with us. He is a fine young man, and he is a joy to be around. And even when we had disagreements about whether he was going to take our car out on an icy evening, we simply had a sentence or two, this isn't going to happen, and he said okay and walked away. I do have one more thing to say, that that probably for me in making a determination of whether or not your child, the person's child, is best suited for New Directions is the conversation that they have with you and with Dr. Rubin during that intake initial process. I found both of you completely available and willing to help make the determination. I never have ever felt like this was, when I was talking to you, a need for you to bring any person into the program. It really is a process that you get to determine whether or not you can help our child as much as we want our child entrusted with you. So I think that's really important that parents understand that. How do you say that? That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, so you can cut this out. Let me start that piece again. The most important thing that I think parents need to understand when they're making that initial foray into New Directions is that it's a collaborative effort between Dr. Rubin and Dr. Grelling and the parent to determine the best placement for their young adult.
What do you think your son's favorite things are that he's doing right now? What is he talking about that he's really enjoying? Doesn't have to be a New Directions thing, but
so actually, this is kind of interesting. The transition for my son from when he entered New Directions to where he is now, his level of enjoyment, the kinds of things that he likes to do are completely different from when he first entered New Directions and where he's at now. When he first entered New Directions, it was important that he participate in all the evening activities, and that really was the focus of his social activities and his social joys. The clinical rapport that he's had with his therapists along the way has been the number one most important thing to him, which surprised me. But that relationship has been extremely important and strong. Now, just yesterday when we arrived, he received a phone call from a friend that he had met at the local Taco Bell. And the friend was going to come over and hang out. And my son forgot to tell him that his parents were in town. So he postponed that interaction for down the road. And that's the thing that he's doing now, is he's enjoying going to college. He's enjoying having his activities outside of the realm of new Directions. And so that confidence is like really, really being demonstrated in his life.